Hello and welcome to this episode of the Magnetic Woman Show. As you know, if you have been a longtime listener of the podcast, I fucking love interviews. I love chatting with other incredible women. And today is no different. So today I am so excited to introduce you to Taylor Bonga, and she supports women in cultivating trauma-informed emotional mastery, secure, soulful connections, and core pattern change. She so beautifully blends somatic and attachment informed and evidence based approaches to support embodied leadership, nervous system regulation, and relational awareness. So, Taylor, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to dive in, but I always love to start the podcast with asking you to tell the audience a little bit more about you. Like, how did you get into this work? You know, we love to give a little professional bio, but let's hear it straight from you. Tell us a little bit more
Yes.
about what you do and how you got into it.
Thank you. Thank you for that intro. I'm so excited to be here and talk further about embodied feminine leadership and
Yes.
how your audience, can take it a level deeper and step up in
Yes.
this world today. Um, so I am a nervous system coach. A lot of people are like, well, what does that mean? And essentially, really teaching women new coping skills and patterns that they were not modeled growing up. So
Wow.
as we kind of mentioned before we started this, working with millennial and Gen X women, who grew up in those emotionally unstable or unavailable households or home styles, and really giving them an opportunity to rewrite that story. And the reason I got into this work is I grew up with an alcoholic mom. So we had a lot of love in
Mm.
our home and a lot of normalcy and privilege, but we also had a hell of a lot of dysfunction. And when I
Yeah.
became a mom myself, I saw a lot of that coming out in the way that I was interacting
Mm.
in my most precious relationships. And I didn't want to be that way. So I went
Yeah.
on a 10-year journey and decided to culminate all of my learnings and teachings into programs and work that others can take at a more accelerated rate.
I love that so much. And I know the concept of like emotional instability resonates with so many people because even if you didn't see it in your immediate family home life, no doubt within the extended family that was occurring. Like when I think of my own life, a lot of that emotional instability came from extended family, which then, bled into the immediate family, of
Yeah.
course. And, before we started talking, you brought up this term that I love that I know describes every single woman listening, cycle breaker,
Yes.
because we are the women who are like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like this that has been occurring in my lineage and in the world for generations, clearly not working, people. Clearly. Like
Clearly.
let's change this. So let's talk a little bit about the nervous system because that is the basis of everything. So when you start working with women around the nervous system, where do you tend to start?
I love this question because it is such a challenging place to work because of that hypervigilance. That's one of the patterns that we work on, right?
Mm-hmm.
As women and who grew up in that time where we're constantly reading a room. And that's why so many of us are so fucking intuitive because we were conditioned to be like, let me make sure everything is clear before I interact with this space, right? And so we
Yeah.
unconsciously just show up to spaces and we're like, we can literally read how everyone is feeling in a room before we
Mm-hmm.
even speak to anyone, right? And that's a magical
Mm-hmm.
gift. But where I typically start with people because of that hypervigilance is just in the idea of responding over reacting. And I
Yeah.
know because I work with like a lot of moms too. And when we have little children who are pushing our buttons and stretching our capacity and doing kid things that are so acceptable and tolerable, but weren't accepted or tolerable when we were kids. We get so reactive, we overreact, and then we feel guilty and shameful for the things that we've said or done or how we behaved. And so, really getting to the foundational core of just being able to create new processes in our bodies that allow us
Mm,
to have that, like, just that little bit of space to respond versus react in a way that we're going to regret later.
yeah. And even again, the vocabulary of responding, overreacting hits
Yeah.
differently in the body, right?
Hmm.
And as you said, people, when we're in a hypervigilant state and we react, there tends to be a lot more regret, which we know women carry so much shame. Like,
Yes.
from my perspective, and I don't know if there's science to back this up because, I mean, why would they ever really research women and our emotions? I think that we carry collectively the like shame for society, right? Like we're kind of the shame carriers. And that's perpetuated in the patriarchy and with religion, where we're constantly fed these ideas of what we should be ashamed of as women. And I personally don't have kids. Um, and as a woman in the world, and as a woman who has a lot of mom friends, like mom guilt and mom shame is a real thing. And so when
Hmm.
you're in a cycle of constantly reacting because your nervous system is dysregulated, that just feeds and fuels shame, which keeps us
Yes.
stuck even
Hmm.
longer in these cycles. So I'm curious, like,
Yeah.
how does shame show up for you? How does shame show up for the women that you work with and in the spaces that you lead?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to comment on the science behind what you're talking about because I don't know about like the collective shame, although I firmly agree with you. But I do know scientifically that due to like epigenetics and just the way that our cells are made from mother to child, that we
Mm,
actually do carry patterns. I don't even know how many generations back it is, but I know it's from at least our grandma, if not more,
I've
just
heard up
because of
to
the way that our
7.
eggs, yeah, are created within wombs of the women and
Mm-hmm.
how they're carried on to us, which is
Mm-hmm.
so fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'd say like the shame really shows up in the ways of primarily, like I know you talk a lot about the self-centered woman, and I love that idea because it's this shame we carry that I can't put myself first and I
Yeah.
can't have alone time and I can't slow down and all of these things that we were conditioned to believe. And if we do them, we feel ashamed or we feel guilty. For example,
Mm-hmm.
just resting. I mean, A, because we're tired,
Yeah.
like God forbid. And
Right?
secondly, resting because you can, without feeling guilty. And so one of the things
Yeah.
that I've really honed in as a message for myself and my clients is that rest is productive.
Oh, yes. Louder for
Like
the people
rest
in
is
the back.
actually productive. If because as a society, we're so individualistic and we're so emphasized
Mm-hmm.
on productivity, like that's how I have to put it for people to believe that it's okay, which is
Yeah. Yeah.
insane when you think about it. Like you're
Yeah.
still being productive by resting is how we can interpret and understand and feel okay with resting, which is wild.
It's insane. Yeah. And I just want to go back to what I was saying about like carrying shame for society. What I mean is because patriarchy conditions women to be ashamed of a lot of things versus men who are not
Yes,
ashamed to
100%.
rest, who are not
Hmm.
ashamed to mess up, who are not ashamed to file their eighth bankruptcy and start another business,
Or to
right?
show their bodies.
Or to show their bodies or to take advantage of other people and their bodies, right? Like, I think that a lot of shame in our society is directed at women. Like, you
Hmm.
need to feel ashamed basically of existing. And then that's what I mean. Like, we carry,
Yes.
all of the shame that's meant to be felt for humanity is placed on women's shoulders. Like, you be
Hmm.
ashamed because you exist in a women's body versus men doing the exact same things or worse. And we're seeing this
Yeah.
play out right now in the United States, globally, in the structures of power, right? Like, how many women do we know want to live big, epic, I always say like iconic lives? And you need to have a lot of money to do that. And there's a sense of shame of like, who am I to have that? Who am I to want that?
Hmm.
And it's like, girl, you have a shit ton of money. You're probably going to open a dog sanctuary. You're not going to go around creating like a global trafficking ring. Like, you know what I mean? And so I just think when we start to do nervous system work, there's this added benefit of, yes, like you feel safe in the moment, but you also get to work through this inherited and societal shame, guilt,
Yes,
fear that is placed on us as women.
100%. Yeah, that is like you nailed it because it's so true. And we carry it within that nervous system from
Yeah.
such a young age.
Yep.
We are so conditioned, especially those, and I know you do a lot of like deconstruction of religion.
Mm-hmm.
I was questioning religion from the time I was like 12 years old, attending vacation Bible study, and I was like, are you guys sure? Like, is it you really believe
Yeah.
this? Like,
Yeah.
really, as a young kid, I really, really questioned and was like, how, what, just like
Yeah.
completely flabbergasted by what I was being taught. And I
Uh-huh.
truly believe the women that believed and were, grew up with those messages fight against that even farther than I did, just in a societal way. In my
Of
story, it was a little more around just generational cycles and patterning of addiction and things like that,
course.
which can feed into that as well. But it's coming at us from all these different angles.
Oh my gosh. Of course. Of course.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, bringing up the word that you said earlier as cycle breakers, I
Hmm.
don't know about you, but for me, one thing I always say and try to remind myself is like, I'm the first one dealing with this. Like, truly, on a really deep nervous system level, subconscious level, like, I'm the first one in my lineage, at least as far
Yeah.
back as I can see, that's addressing this stuff. And so
Yeah.
it can feel really overwhelming and
Hmm.
really, I don't know about you or the women you work with, but at least for me, I get a little sometimes like, why me? Like, really? Why this one I picked? Come
Well, I have
on.
a reframe for you. If you were my
Tell me.
client, I would say, like, what is this teaching me? Right? Like, what
Uh-huh.
privilege do I have from this? What silver
Ooh,
lining can we gather from this hardship, this new, pressure or responsibility that we have. And on
yeah,
that note, too, I do believe that the generations before us, like, had their parts in changing cycles that they were up against too.
that's a good
However,
point.
we know so much more about the brain and the nervous system
Such
than
a
they
good
did when
point.
my mom was raising me. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? So like we
yeah,
do have a new level of it. But I have to credit my ancestors to being the feminists of their time as well, and
yeah.
appreciating many of the cycles that they gifted
They
to me,
broke.
right?
Yeah,
And like remembering that we need to carry forward those beautiful things as well.
that's a really great reframe. And I know so many women are gonna like take a sigh of relief because
Yes.
it it can feel, and it is really intense at times,
Yeah.
coming up against breaking these cycles, coming up against, you know, moving from reaction to responding, coming up against the healing of the nervous system
Yeah.
in a way that was not modeled at home
No.
or with the adults growing up. And especially if you have kids, being the one who's modeling something different for your kids. And I imagine,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm curious for you and even the women that you work with, has that been hard, like on a familial level, to be like, okay, family at large, like I know that
Yes.
everybody has done it version A, we're
Yes.
trying version B, And only version B is allowed now.
Yes, yes, yes. That thing called boundaries that nobody in the family has ever practiced before is
Or enjoys.
definitely a hardship, and I'd say a common challenge that many of my clients face. And it really starts with that nervous system capacity of being able to like hold the space for other people's disappointment without actually
Oof.
changing your narrative or direction on the subject.
Let's talk a little bit about
Boom.
that because that I think is one of the most challenging for women in general. The women in my community who tend to be high achieving, like
Yes.
former good girls, former people pleasers, because we're taught
Yes.
at a very young age that our sense of safety and our sense of self comes from
Worth. Yeah.
how others react to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so when we're having those times where we're disappointing others, I like to call this emotional caretaking for other people. So when
Mm,
we begin to overly emotionally caretake for other people's experiences, we are no longer in our embodied leadership.
yeah.
And I can say I have a perfect example of this. I have a client from gosh, she's been with me for years, like since the inception. I've been coaching since 2019. And she had an eye roll moment when we first started working together because I was like, you are, the leader of your family. And whether you believe it or not, your
Mm-hmm.
energy dictates how other people follow. And there was
Mm-hmm.
that eye roll moment of like, oh, how is that possible? And then by the end of
Mm-hmm.
this like 6 month coaching program that I have, she couldn't believe how true that felt to her. And so over the years, she came back, she came back, she came back. She worked the work, right? Because it's not like this thing that you just learn and go and do, and then it's over and you're on to your life. Like it's a constant evolution of yourself and different leadership abilities. And they begin to, what's the word I'm looking for? Like pile up on top of each other, right? And create
Mm-hmm.
momentum and open up new
Mm-hmm.
doorways for new skills and new ways to build the relationships around you. And so over this course of like 7 years, she had been modeling the things that we've been talking about this nervous system regulation, about creating new boundaries with her family, which was really difficult to hold, especially with her mom, which I know so many of us struggle with
Yeah,
that particular
for
relationship.
sure.
And just in the past year, that particular person, she just held that embodiment. She held the leadership for years and years and years. And the mom had finally responded in a different way than she ever had before. Started going to therapy, started really
Wow.
becoming curious when they had conversations instead of reacting to the way that she was coming to her with these new
Wow.
loving boundaries. And so it just goes to show you that as an embodied leader, you influence others, whether you believe it or not. And
Mm.
even if it's not overnight, it takes a lot of time. But by you being in that role, other people are learning how to do that too.
So beautiful. That's amazing.
And we're
That's a,
talking about, right, like that generation of women, and my
yeah.
mom is no longer alive, right? So that to
Mhm.
me is like she really struggled. So it's really a blessing in disguise,
Yeah.
but I don't get to see that in my
Yeah.
life. And so to hear that from other women that like this work that I have been doing is so powerful that it's actually my mom and I have like the best relationship we've ever had in our entire life now.
That's
Like that's
amazing.
powerful. And that
Yeah.
mom is going to go influence her friends
That's
of
going to
that,
ripple out
and
for
so the ripple effect
sure.
is just priceless.
That's so amazing.
Yeah.
Now, I want to loop back to emotional caretaking because
Yes.
we as women have a tendency to do this across the board, not just in our immediate family. One way that I see this show up a lot with women is in relationships,
Mm-hmm.
romantic relationships, especially if they're in
Mm-hmm.
relationships with men. Because, drum roll please, surprise, surprise, we've been told that we are in charge of caretaking men's emotions, grown men's emotions, right? And so I think that for a lot of women who are consider themselves, see themselves as leaders who've done a lot of work, one area where emotional caretaking still takes over is in romantic relationships. Is
Mm-hmm.
that something that you
Yeah.
see with your clients as well?
I do, and that's something that's brought up often. So I actually have this program. It's opening up to more clientele next year, but it's mainly been for moms that are of like our age and things of that nature. And they sign up because they want to like interact with their kids better. And then
Mm-hmm.
month three, when we've started to do the inner work and we've all started to like really gain the trust and rapport with everyone else. The truth be told,
Mm-hmm.
they're all there because
Mm-hmm.
they're struggling in their marriages and in
Of
their
course.
relationships with their partners
Of
because
course.
they feel undervalued. They feel like
Yes.
they're carrying the mental load. They just feel like
Yeah.
everything is very unfair. Which is, if you look at the gender roles of our society, it's
True.
just right
It's
macro into
true.
a micro situation.
Totally.
And so they have to learn how to use their nervous system capacity, their communication skills, and their boundary setting skills to actually like reteach those people how to have a successful relationship with them. Because at the
Oof.
end of the day, and this takes a while to get to, it's like
Mm-hmm.
you're not happy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a hard thing to
Mm-hmm.
gain awareness around and then also admit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But when we can
Yep.
do that, right, that
Yeah.
awareness and that little bit of rupture, honestly, like I am a firm believer, and I always say this, I'm like, breakdown to breakthrough, baby. We have to when things are falling apart, when there is conflict, that is just, if we choose to see it in this way, that's the portal for the expansion and like that deep intimacy and connection that we're all craving. But when
Yeah.
we can't look at it with that lens, then it just is friction and misalignment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, a lot of it, the nervous system, at least this is how I see it, and of course I'm totally open to your perspective
Yeah.
of this as well. Nervous system work is such a core foundational piece. And I think for a lot of women in the year 2026, what's happening is what's playing out in their intimate lives, like whether that be romantic relationships or with motherhood or with family dynamics or
Yes.
in work and career. For up until recently, it's been like, oh, this is a me thing. This is a me thing I have to fix.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, I think what's happening is a lot of women are realizing, like, no, these are systemic issues that are playing out in your intimate life.
Mm-hmm.
And there is, you know, personal work to do in these spaces, like nervous system capacity work, like,
Yes.
emotional regulation work. And like you said, admitting as well, like, th- and I say this to friends of mine who, especially our mothers who are in partnerships. Um, I say I'm single and child free by choice. I'm actively choosing to not
Great.
be, yeah.
Yes.
And
Amen.
you're right. And I have friends, like, of course, like I said, who are mothers who are in relationships, and they like, I feel like I'm carrying the mental load. I'm like, no, you are carrying the mental load. This is not something that you're just like, it might be happening. No, that is what's happening. I feel like I'm undervalued. You are being undervalued. And I think there's
Yes.
a real power in, like you said, really recognizing, like, oh, I feel like I might be a little unhappy, to like, no, I am unhappy with how this is playing out. I am unhappy with how these systemic, like, ways of being in the world for mothers and wives is playing out in my life. And like you said, the breakdown to breakthrough, like, and I'm not available for it anymore.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think at least for me, one thing that I really focus on in the work that I do in my content is like helping women realize that these things that often we think are like, oh, maybe it's just me, like maybe it's just like I can't make it work, or maybe it's just like I personally am so codependent and I'm caretaking in my relationship. versus like, no, this is how we were conditioned, this is how we were raised, this is how society tells us to be, this is what's
Hmm.
rewarded. And yes, it's playing out in your personal life. And so like let's look about switching that, but a level of like this isn't all just on the individual, right?
Yes, 100%. I mean, so I'm also in my master's for counseling. So
Mm,
I'll be, yeah,
amazing.
turning
Congratulations.
psychotherapist here shortly and soon.
Yes,
Very
baby.
exciting. Thank
That's
you.
incredible.
But that is like the theory that I plan to orient from is this feminist lens of
Mm,
like, there really truly can't be individual change, and there can to a certain
mm-hmm.
extent, right?
Yeah, of course.
Without the systemic change.
Mm-hmm.
And how do those factors, like you're saying, play in to
Yeah.
the mental health issues that we're
Yeah.
having as women,
Mm-hmm.
which is largely evolved around that inequality that we are seeing on a
Yeah.
micro level in our lives. And
Totally.
it's it is difficult when you're in, like me and many of my clients, a long-term relationship where things
Mm-hmm.
have been a certain way, where that person was raised a certain way,
Oof.
and things
Yeah.
have been a certain way for an amount of time, but we're lifting the veil. And like this is
Yeah.
happening on a planetary level, right?
Oh my
We're
gosh. Yeah.
feeling it because there's so much light coming onto this planet, and people are
Yep.
waking up to a
Yes.
new way, right? This is very
Yeah.
outdated. And when that revolution, that realization kind of comes through, it can kind of rock a relationship of like, well, what do you mean you're not
Yeah.
available for this anymore? You have
Yes.
been. So why now?
Exactly.
What's changed? What's
Ex-
different? And so that takes a
exactly.
whole right level of navigation, and bravery and courage to be able to navigate that.
So much bravery and courage. And this is why I say, and I like this is a hill I will die on. I have been dying on metaphorically for years. The masculine doesn't lead shit. Okay. It's always been the feminine. And especially now, it is the feminine that's leading. It's the feminine that's leading these systemic changes starting in the home. It's the feminine that's like,
Mhm.
no, I'm not going to be the overgiving martyr of a mother,
Mm,
showing my kids
amen.
yet again for another generation that women are just so self sacrificing and only accept crumbs. No, I will not be the woman in a relationship who is the emotional caretaker for a grown ass man who can't get his shit together. Like, no,
Right.
and it really is the feminine, the women who are like, no, here's the line in the sand. And then with
Hmm.
the work that you do is vital, the nervous system capacity to work to hold the discomfort
Hmm.
of this is upsetting him. This is upsetting them. This
Yes.
is upsetting the other moms at the PTA when I'm like, no, I'm not giving up my 18th Sunday in a row for you people. Like, come on. You know what I mean? And that's just me theorizing. Again, I don't know, okay,
Yes.
so I'm just assuming. Um,
Yes.
but I think, and this is one of the reasons why I am hosting the Embodied Feminine Leadership Revolution, which you are one of the incredible
Yes.
experts of. Because I think right now, where we are in 2026, like, yes, we can zoom out and be like, there's so much light coming in, there's so much consciousness that's evolving, and simultaneously, like, on a human level, there is so much pain, there is so much suffering, there is
I know.
so much coming up in our political systems and the power structures and how society
Yes.
has been set up. And it was really important for me to gather women who are using their voice, their platform, and their work to make micro and macro changes, and who aren't afraid to use their platforms to speak out about their morals, their political perspectives, because I personally believe if you're a woman and in business, that is political, period. And if you have a platform, you owe it to the like to the people to use your platform for something good. And so that's one of the
Yes.
reasons why I'm so excited to have you as well as so many other incredible experts. So if you want to join us in the event, it's completely free, and you can go to the link below to sign up for free and get access to Taylor, and all of the other experts have contributed such incredible gold. And I'm so excited for it. But I want to get back, Taylor, to as we begin to wrap up, what what if anything is still like coming up for you that you want to share with the audience, whether it be,
Mm,
you know, what we were just
yeah.
talking about or
Let me
anything?
sink in just for a
Yes,
moment
please take a
to see
moment.
what's here for them. I just think if you've been listening and this conversation has been resonating with you, that you are the leader of your own life and you get to choose each and every day the very next best step. So if you're unhappy in that relationship, maybe it's steady and great, but you're sick of the same cycle showing up. Or maybe you do have that estranged relationship with your mom, or maybe you
Mm,
are feeling that mom guilt for the way that you've been treating your family. Like, and to be fair, like so fair with everything we've been seeing
yes.
in the world and the amount of social media that is like in our face, just like
Oh,
ripping down our nervous
yeah.
system layer by layer. Like it's all so valid. And so just hold deep compassion for yourself and come to this summit, come learn from women who are living the work themselves. Like that's what I always say
Yes.
to my clients is like, yes,
Mm,
I am an expert. I have a lot of knowledge. I've done a lot of research. I've done a lot of work, but I am walking the walk right
yeah,
next to you.
you are. Exactly. Exactly.
Right? Like there is no hierarchy here. And that's what I
Yes.
truly believe in where we're headed in this world is to a matriarchal society where women are at the center, where there are interconnected support systems, where it's
Mhm.
not a patriarchal hierarchy. And the only way we can really move forward with that is to wake up, to really be the embodied feminine leader that we were born to be, and to be brave
Yeah.
and courageous in that path.
Yeah. And I mean, you walk the walk so beautifully. And I think, again, especially those of us who tend to be overachievers can be like, not walking the walk enough. And so, one thing I always want to remind women, and especially if you're here watching the podcast and or you have or are signing up for the event, chances are you're already walking the walk in so many
Mhm.
huge seismic ways. And it's really important to note like what you're already doing. And of course, wanting more, wanting deeper, wanting, to take it to the next level is normal, natural. Like that's part of life.
That's how
Um,
we're wired.
exactly. And so, again, like with you and the work that you do, you're doing it in such beautiful seismic ways that, especially with the example you gave of that client, like the ripple effect is just probably beyond your own comprehension of like what you've done. And so I just want to thank you so, so much for being here, for your wisdom, and for being part of the event, which again, if you want to join us, the links below. And if you want to check Taylor out on her social medias, those are also linked below. So make sure to go do that. Follow her, share this episode, tag both of
Yes.
us. Um, any last parting words, Taylor?
I just want to say thank you. And to all the listeners, like definitely celebrate yourselves in the ways that you are making a difference because to those overachievers, you're doing a lot and you need to recognize and celebrate yourself. So I'll leave it with that.
Amazing, Taylor. Thank you again so much for being here. And thank you to everybody watching or listening to the podcast. And we'll see you next time.